Hello and welcome to Lit Lessons with GCSE Memes. Today we're going to be looking especially at a time and place poem from the Edexcel collection, and that poem is Adlestrop. Okay, one of my favourite poems in the collection. It's short, it's simple when it comes to sort of language choices, but there's lots of nice subtleties behind it. So I thought I'd pick this poem for us to look at today, look at the context, do some analysis of it, and summarise it ready for your revision. So without further ado, the poem itself. Why did it come to be written? Well, the context behind this poem is it was written by Edward Thomas about a real-life train journey that he took. And this occurred 6 weeks before World War I began. Now, that's really important for you to realise because the war is something that really was influential behind Edward Thomas's life, as you'll come to see. So this actually happened before World War I began. There was a lot of international unrest beforehand. So that might have shaped this poem slightly as well. The poem itself, however, became written after the war began, okay, and after it had started. So the writer is remembering that day 6 months before when the war had already started, okay, and I think that's really, really important for you to realise because this poem is now considered a war poem, even though it didn't even occur during the war. Now, Adlestrop Station, where the poem is set, is actually a really, really small platform. And the train was not expected to stop there that day, and I think that also influenced Edward Thomas to write about this because it was an event that he was not expecting. It was a spontaneous thing that happened. So it was something that was kind of just occurred out of nowhere. Okay, so that's another thing to consider with regards to this poem. The final thing that I think you must consider, I've mentioned the war a lot with regards to this, especially obviously World War One. The poet himself actually started writing poems at the start of and just before the start of World War One, and it seems to suggest that he was looking for a different change in career. He actually wrote novels and books beforehand, before he started to write poetry, and it suggests to me that he was influenced by the war and he wanted to chase down his career of being a war poet. And what we do know about Edward Thomas is that actually he enlisted in the war in 1917. So that suggests to me once again that he was desperate to be a war poet. He wanted some sort of inspiration, and unfortunately that ended with the loss of his life on the battlefield in 1917. So the wars are really, really important with regards to this poem, and I'm just going to leave you a few moments here to pause the video and write down that key context that I've kind of gone through just there. Okay, so have a bit of a pause here, write down everything that you think is important for your notes just before we start analysing the poem. So, this poem then. Let's have a look and do some analysis of it. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to analyse 3 key feelings that definitely exist in the poem. Okay, and the first of those key feelings that I've noticed is this idea of peace, or a posh word for peace, serenity. And that's created by these here, okay? You might notice we've got some punctuation here that's creating pauses mid-line. So if you want to hit really high marks, it's good to talk about structure when it comes to poems. And this is a lovely structural technique that we refer to in English literature as caesura. So the pause created in a poem in the middle of a line. So if I read that first line to you, yes, I remember Adlestrop. We immediately get a relaxed tone. The voice is remembering that day really fondly. And it also creates and suggests this slow pace of that day, the slow pace with which the poet might be remembering that day as well, which shows you how much they enjoyed the event, albeit the unexpected event of stopping in Adlestrop Station that day. So that's key feeling number 1. Key feeling number 2 is somewhat linked to it, and that is a feeling of quietness. And a really, really easy piece of terminology for you here is auditory imagery, which basically just means the sounds created in the text. Now, there's not that many sounds created in this text, but the ones that are there are very clear. We have a blackbird singing, and we have also this one here, the steam hissed, okay, the steam train hissing. And straight away we get some nice simple onomatopoeia which creates this very, very clear image for us of a simple, beautiful scene with very, very clear sounds. On top of that as well, we have this line here, someone cleared his throat, which is in my opinion, one of the most interesting lines in the poem, because it could be read in two ways. It could be that the steam train's clearing his throat, okay, so it's a piece of personification, or it could be another very clear sound from someone simply having a bit of a cough on the platform. This lack of clarity, whether this is another character there that day or it's the writer personifying the steam train, creates this idea of, once again, relaxation. The voice is so relaxed they've become unclear in what they're saying. Okay, so that's a lovely thing for you to talk about, again, if you want to hit some really high marks here. And for me, if it is personification the writer is using, I think it's really important for you to say that the voice therefore feels connected to the place. They feel like the place is a friend or a companion. So if the steam train is clearing his throat, the use of the pronoun his, and the fact that the steam train has been given a throat suggests the train is a friend or a companion joining Thomas on that day, on that unexpected journey. So that's key feeling number 2 of quietness. Key feeling number 3 is slightly different, and that's a feeling of national pride. Remember, this is a poem that was written after World War I began, and the writer seems to be reflecting upon it, and it's very clear for me what the writer is proud of when it comes to Britain. Now, again, here you'll see another lovely structural technique, the polysyndenton. That's repetition of ands and lists. And actually, what is being listed here are the things that the writer is proud of. Willows, willow herb, grass, meadow sweet, haycock dry. These are plants, all right, very simple plants that are a big part of the British countryside. And the writer seems to be showing his pride for the natural world that exists in Britain during that time. We also have a mention of some of the county names, Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire, which creates a sense of importance behind the place and behind Britain once again. And what I think is really important about this poem is that Thomas seems to recognise that he wants to protect this beautiful place he is proud of from invaders that might occur during the World War. So he wants to protect the place because of its natural beauty, because of his fondness towards it, and that becomes very clear here, in my opinion. So, that's my analysis of the poem. Now, I'm not going to go any further than that because I want to keep my videos short and sweet. But you might want to again pause here, because what I've done is I've summarised the poem into key quotations, context, feelings, and 3 good poems to compare it to here for you to add to your notes. So have a few moments here just to get those notes down, just to consolidate everything we've just looked at for a few moments. Great. And to finish today, as always, we finish with a GCS meme. And I think that's really important for you to realise, once again, that this is about calmness. And I use a really old school meme here to reflect that calmness that Thomas feels. As always, leave comments in the comment section, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out our Instagram page. Thank you.